Hello, hello, you lovely people. Time to wrap up this unit on, this module on cultural relativism. Again, just one last time, just so we make sure we're comfortable with this, what this is. Again, cultural relativism is the medical ethical claim that morality is a matter of social and cultural acceptance because morality is solely determined by the customs and laws of one's society and culture. Again, a very bold, normative, meta-ethical claim about the nature of morality with profound, as we'll see momentarily, profound consequences for our understanding of morality itself. Now, so far, though, we've only seen that Rachels and Rachels are not persuaded by Ruth Benedict's argument, her little anthropological argument, her argument of cultural differences. Again, what Rachels and Rachels say is that this argument is not valid. That is, the conclusion of cultural relativism does not follow from her anthropological evidence that she gives in that article. It's not valid. The idea is just starting with the facts that societies disagree about what's right and wrong. That may be true, maybe not, but even if it is true, that's not enough to tell us about the nature of morality itself. It's still possible that some could be right, some could be wrong, or we're all wrong, or whatever, it's not relative. And of course, there could be better arguments out there to support cultural relativism. It's, like I said, it's a popular position. People like that open-mindedness. So what Rachels and Rachels decide, instead of trying to imagine what other arguments might look like to defend cultural relativism, they instead adopt a tactic to just show that cultural relativism is probably wrong, is probably something we ought to reject as a theory about morality. And what they do is they use a popular way of arguing known as reductio ad absurdum. Now, this is a fancy Latin name, I know, literally means reduction to absurdity, but you've probably used forms of this in your arguments with your friends before. It's just you never knew what it was. Because according to the reductio ad absurdum argumentative strategy, the idea is we take a claim and we assume, for the sake of argument, just let's assume that it's true. And then we see where that leads us. And when you're doing the reductio ad absurdum, you show that accepting that position leads to bad things. We don't have to say absurdities. We'll just say bad things. The idea is, so you probably don't want to accept those bad consequences, so you probably ought to reject the initial claim. So how are they going to apply this to cultural relativism, this reductio? Because what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, well, let's assume cultural relativism is true. And then we're going to talk. They give 3. I'll throw in a little bit extra one in there as well. And indeed, pretty much every philosopher who rejects cultural relativism does this strategy. They just list out a bunch of negative consequences that you're stuck with if you accept cultural relativism. Rachels and Rachels will give us 3 of those bad consequences. And the idea is, well, those are bad consequences. And so the solution is to get rid of cultural relativism. And so you avoid all those problems. So again, cultural relativism has some problems if you choose to accept it. If you want to avoid those problems, you got to give up the theory. And that's the strategy of reductio ad absurdum. One last time so they can hear it in the back. Reductio ad absurdum. Assume for the sake of argument a position is true. Show that acceptance of that position leads to bad consequences. And then, well, you want to avoid those bad consequences? You got to give up the original claim. With this argument that Rachels and Rachels make, they're going to accept for the sake of argument that cultural relativism is true, come up with 3 bad consequences that it has, and then say, look, you want to avoid these bad things, and so you're going to have to give up the theory of cultural relativism. So what are these bad consequences? Well, the first one they give is they say, well, we cannot criticize the social practices of others. And of course, they're always like, well, duh, that was the whole point of the theory. It was so that we shouldn't be criticizing. We should be more nurturing and open-minded when it comes to other cultures. And that might seem good, perhaps. But do we want to be okay with literally anything other societies might do? I mean, isn't the point of human rights, for instance, such that we can look and at not just at ourselves, but at others and say, like, look, you know, they're treating women badly, they're treating minorities badly, they're doing this, that, and the other that aren't good. They're violating human rights. The whole point of human rights is that we have them because we're human, not because we belong to a particular society or culture. And so do we want to be okay with people, with societies that oppress their own people? I mean, isn't it wrong to burn a widow with her husband? There just seems something profoundly wrong about doing that. And indeed, India as a country, as a society, realized that and banned the practice. Similarly, the killing of the innocent person in the crossroads, banned very early on. Like I said, it was like the 1600s where sugigiri, I say it quick, was banned in Japan. The idea is that maybe we should be able to criticize some bad social practices. Again, the hurting of women, minorities, and other vulnerable people seem to be an area that we should care about. And by the way, Rachels and Rachels don't say this, but fun side point, if I can't criticize other societies, I can't praise them either, right? Because cultural relativism says it's all relative to your own culture and society. So just as for the same reason I can't criticize your culture for its practices, then I couldn't praise you either. And that actually might even be worse, because now I cannot learn from other societies because I can't criticize and I cannot praise. After all, if I can't judge, I can't judge. I can't judge negatively, ooh, shame on you, and I can't say, hey, that's really cool, we should do the same thing here. Can't do any of that. Rachels and Rachels don't say that, but that's an important thing to note. And I'll just add, it just occurred to me another one about how we can't learn from others, is that people of other societies can't criticize us either. And that seems weird, because we often think that sometimes strangers maybe can have good insights into what's going on into other societies and cultures. So again, I can't criticize you, you can't criticize me, I can't praise you, you can't praise me. We can't learn from each other, period. Because according to cultural relativism, we can't possibly ever understand each other because we're from different societies and cultures. And that seems, to say the least, kind of extreme. So we can't criticize and praise other societies. We can't learn from strangers, from those from other cultures. Those seem kind of rough. The second one that Rachels and Rachels give is that we cannot criticize our own society either. Now I think we're getting into water where it's like, oh, that's not good. Maybe not criticizing, not praising. Maybe you're like, I can live with that. But now it's like we can't even criticize our own society either. If cultural relativism is correct, my society can never be wrong, because what is right is what my society says it's right. What is wrong is what my society says it is. So I can't say my society's wrong because my society is the one telling me what's right and wrong, not the other way around. So if I lived in ancient Rome, well, I'd probably be dead. I wouldn't last long. I'm not very healthy. But if I lived in ancient Rome, how could I ever criticize slavery and fights to the death? Because if I said, hey, fellow Romans, this is awful, we should not be having slaves and gladiatorial battles to the death, and the cultural relativist says, hey, dude, that's me. I'm not the relativist. They're saying, hey, dude, hey, Professor Gray, we know you're an ancient Roman, but your society, our society, says slavery and battles to the death are cool. So sorry, with your little crazy little reform you're trying for, that's not going to cut it. You can't criticize us because your society is the one telling you what's right and wrong. You can't turn around and tell society. No, society decides, not you. And again, that's how it works in cultural relativism. As I mentioned in the earlier video, justification in cultural relativism ends with them saying, that's how we do it here. So if you don't like slavery or slavery or fights to the death, the cultural relativist says, sorry, that's what we do here. We do these things. That's your society. So I can't criticize and praise other societies. I can't learn from strangers. Again, that can't learn from strangers. That's Professor Gray's one on the side there. But Rachels and Rachel say you can't criticize other societies. Rachel, that's number one for them. Number two for them is you cannot criticize our own society either, because whatever your society says is right and wrong. So that's it. Society decides, not you. So you can't criticize it. And then that leads to this third claim of Rachels and Rachel's, that moral progress itself is then nearly impossible. Because as I already said just a moment ago, if cultural relativism is correct, your society can never be wrong, period. But now think about what it means for a society to progress. Isn't being a reformer, a progressive, all about new things, change, positive change, change for the better? So progressive is to get rid of slavery. Progressive is to end those fights to the death. Progressive is to stop burning witches. Progressive is to end this practice of cutting people at the crossroads. It's progressive to stop burning widows at their killing widows at their husband's funeral. That seems like progress. Indeed, it's progress that all these societies, in fact, seem to have made. But if my society is never wrong, how could there ever be progress? It seems that we're practically perfect in every way. As Mary Poppins would say, practically perfect in every way.
As I expected, Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way.
Yeah, so progress is meaningless because any change from where society is now would be wrong. Otherwise, society would already be that way. No, society says this is right, how we currently are, this is the right way to do things. And deviation then is wrong. And so we can't get rid of slavery and fights to the death if you're in ancient Rome, because then we're no longer ancient Rome. We've progressed to something new. But if we're perfect as we are, we can't have that cultural progress. And the reading mentions a few ways that there might be progress in this view, but I won't go into it except just to note that it's pretty limited. Because again, if society is generally right about, if society tells us what's right and wrong, I can't criticize that society and say we ought to progress and change. No, so I said, no, we just told you what's right and wrong. That's it. There's nothing more. Again, justification, which initially seemed cool. What ought I to do? What your society says to do. Why should I do it? Because that's the source of right and wrong. And so then that's it. There's no further questions. Again, it always ends with that's how we do it here. I say we should change. We should abolish slavery and end the gladiator fights. Sorry, dude. We do these things. We do slavery and death battles here. That's how ancient Rome is. There is no progress. Progress would be a change to something different, and that's not what we do here. So those are the problems that come from accepting cultural relativism. Can't criticize other societies. I added the note that you can't praise other societies. And then also I added that you can't learn from other societies. But also Rachel's number 2, cannot criticize our own society either. And number 3, moral progress is impossible. Now all these seem pretty bad. And so look, that's the reductio ad absurdum. It says these are bad things that happen if you like cultural relativism. They're bad. We should not have those bad things. But then cultural relativism has to go. Sorry, not sorry. I don't know. And indeed, I will say these are the main reasons. These bad consequences that I've given are the main reasons that most philosophers are not cultural relativists, because no one wants these problems. There it is. So time to get rid of that arm flab. It's always my favorite time of the video. Put your arm up, put your hand down on your back, get rid of the jibbly bits. Yeah, pat yourself on the back. You're almost done with another module, this module on cultural relativism. So take that module quiz when you're ready, and then you can move into the next module. We're going to still stick with relativism, but now we're going to talk about subjectivism, where morality is relative to the individual feelings and emotions. But that's not now, that's the future. The now you should take a moment, chill, relax. You're almost done with another module. Very good indeed. All right, I'll see you back here very soon, I'm sure. Probably too soon. But in the meantime, hey, take care, stay safe.